This podcast is supported by MIDI Health. Are you in midlife, feeling dismissed, unheard, or just plain tired of the old healthcare system? You're not alone. In fact, even today, 75% of women seeking care for menopause and perimenopause issues are left entirely untreated. But it's time for a change. It's time for MIDI. MIDI's not just a healthcare provider. It's a women's telehealth clinic founded and supported by world-class leaders in women's health. Their clinicians provide one-on-one, face-to-face consultations where they truly listen to your unique needs. They offer a full range of holistic, data-driven solutions that isn't one-size-fits-all care. This is care uniquely tailored for you. At MIDI, you will find that their mission is clear: to help all women thrive in midlife, giving them access to the healthcare they deserve. Because they believe midlife isn't the middle at all. It is the beginning of your second act. Ready to feel your best and write your second act script? Visit joinmidi.com today to book your personalized, insurance-covered virtual visit. That's joinmidi.com. MIDI, the care women deserve.
You're listening to Make Some Noise Podcast, episode number 716 with guest Dr. Valerie Rein. Welcome to Make Some Noise Podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here in this unraveling of times that we're having right now. Am I right? It is the end of February 2026 as I am recording this new intro for you on an archived interview. This is a podcast episode that came out many years ago, actually. I met Dr. Valerie Rein in 2019, and I believe that we recorded this in 2020. And as I mentioned in a previous podcast episode recently, that I am sort of on the upswing, not sort of, I really am on the upswing in terms of a long transformation that I've been having in my personal life. And obviously that impacts my work. And so as I come up for air, what perfect timing the universe gave me in terms of coming back up for air and being what I feel is very much on the upswing. I am finally full of motivation, inspiration, new ideas, just in time to hopefully be a part of the revolution that I feel is happening right now, and that we have the opportunity to create one. So while I'm behind the scenes doing that, and everything from looking at redoing the copy on my website to starting a Substack, which, by the way, that link will be in the show notes. Please, 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 even if you are not on Substack, download the app. Follow me on Substack. I've been writing over there. Again, something I haven't done in a really long time. I'm going back to my roots, both literally and figuratively. And I'm going to be writing about lots of important things over there, and also how that can support you and help you. And so because of this transition that I'm doing, I have decided to take a break for a short time on interviewing new guests. And I'm bringing you some important archived episodes that you may not have heard before. They may be new to you, or if you did hear them, it's been many years. And this one I think is very, very important. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dr. Rein in just a minute here. But I do want to remind you that if you are looking for deeper support, more attention from someone, you might want to check out my devotion program. It's at andreaowen.com/you. And I plan to run a group program on that, but it's probably not going to be until the end of this year. And so if you want to do it privately with me, the door is open. So you can check out the information there. And if you are not interested in doing it privately, you can sign up to be notified of when I decide to roll it out as a group. Before I tell you about Dr. Rein, I do want to say this. I feel it's my duty, and it is also my honor to support all of you listeners of this particular podcast through the crisis, through the unraveling, through what I hope is a revolution that's happening right now, not just in the United States, but it's bled out into everywhere. In 2020, when things started to fall apart, I've mentioned it on the show here before, I was not able to lead all of you. Couldn't even lead my family during that time. I had a really bad falling apart. And I also had a lot of shame around that, because I think that I had anticipated that, well, I guess you cannot prepare yourself for something like a global pandemic. But I think I thought that if something ever really difficult happened culturally, socially, that I would still be able to lead. I guess I don't even know if I've really even thought about it. But when it happened to me, it was also simultaneously happening when personal things were happening in my life that caused a rupture through my mental health, through my family, through lots of places. And so all that to say, I was not able to lead as I would have liked to. And I've had to look at that period of time in my life professionally and come to terms with it and forgive myself and have some compassion for myself, because I was very, very unwell. And the good news is that I was able to learn from that. I was able to recover. And I come to you today in early 2026 as we are witnessing another global unraveling. This one looks different. And I am in a much better, stronger, wiser, more clear place to be able to lead. And we live in the modern world. This will largely be done digitally. And, I'm of course hoping to do that in person with some of you, as well as doing it in person here, boots on the ground in my own community. I suppose I could have shortened that whole thing and just said, I'm back, baby. Your girl is back. And I am incredibly grateful that all of you those of you listening to this have stuck with me. Even if you're listening to this particular podcast episode late, thank you so much for sticking around. I know you have a lot of choices with podcast episodes, and I am so grateful that you choose to spend your time with me. I will always, always, always lean into that. And as I mentioned, and this link is in the show notes, I would be honored and excited and grateful if you were to follow some of my writings on Substack. We are figuring out how to send out my Substack articles to those of you who are already on my email list. If you don't feel like getting on yet another app or website and you're not on my email newsletter list, I would encourage you to do that. And that way I can just land in your inbox. It's AndreaOwen.com/free. You can sign up for my emails, because I'm going to start sending out the emails that I'm writing on Substack. These articles will be free at least for the next several months as I am building the Substack and just kind of figuring out how it works and all of that good stuff. But I'm not going to put anything behind a paywall just yet. But in order to make a living from my writing, I will eventually do that. So just a heads up there. And then the last thing I want to announce is that next week, I'm excited because I'm going to be putting out a solo podcast episode. I made an Instagram reel that nobody saw because the Instagram algorithm is shit. Because Mark Zuckerberg is a shit. I said it and I mean it. I said what I said. Anyway, it's about shame and what's happening with the men in our lives with the dropping of the Epstein files. That's what my reel is about. It's only 3.5 minutes long, but I am going to do a longer Substack on it. And my hope is that I can help people understand why so many men are silent right now, at least as I am recording this to you on February 20th, 2026. This episode comes out just in a few days, but at least on social media and what I am seeing in my community and beyond, that men are largely silent right now. And there are some men who are unpacking everything publicly and they're angry. Like, where are the men? There are a lot of women and non-binary folks and that are like, where are the men? Why are y'all quiet? And I quietly raised my hand and said, I know. And it has everything to do with shame. And the good news is that I have been trained and I know a lot about shame and how it shows up with everyone, and also how it is organized by gender. And so that is what I'm going to talk about next week. And I'm hoping that it's an episode that you can send to the menfolk in your life that you love and support, and that you can hopefully help them better understand what's going on with them. Because I was talking to Dr. Fox about this and asking him, like, can you tell me what you think about what I'm saying as your experience as a man? And he said, you're right, this is shame, but I don't think that men are ready to hear about that. And I said, well, I think some of them will be. And I think that some of them are the husbands and fathers and sons and brothers and friends of a lot of the women that listen to my podcast. So I'm going to put that out next week. And then, speaking of Dr. Fox, I also have talked to him and asked him if he would come on the show and do a conversation about shit that matters with unqualified people about what we're seeing with the Epstein files. And we are in plans, he and I, to do a 6-series podcast thingy-majig about our relationship. But before that, I told him, I'm like, I would love for this to be an introduction to my community of him. And so he has agreed to do that. So I'm going to try to set that up as quickly as possible and get that out to you in 2 or 3 weeks. So please stay tuned for that. Thank you for listening to this extra long intro. And let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. Dr. Valerie Rein has discovered Patriarchy Stress Disorder and created the only science-backed system for helping women achieve their ultimate success, happiness, and fulfillment by healing the collective inherited trauma of oppression. She holds a master's degree in psychological counseling from Columbia University and a PhD in psychology from the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. Her book, Patriarchy Stress Disorder, The Invisible Inner Barrier to Women's Happiness and Fulfillment, is out now. So without further ado, here is Dr. Valerie Rein. Dr. Valerie, thank you so much for being here.
It's such a joy, Andrea. Thank you for having me.
I was telling people in the introduction how we met, how our paths crossed, and I knew immediately, I just blurted out across the table, I need to have you on my show because I was so riveted by this topic. And I think as humans, we kind of love labels for things. So we can put our finger on it and say, that is the thing that is causing me stress or making me happy or whatever it is. So I want to start in the very beginning. Obviously, I read your bio and people know, the book is called Patriarchy Stress Disorder, The Invisible Inner Barrier to Women's Happiness and Fulfillment. So start and tell us, please, how did you discover what you now call PSD?
I discovered it through my own long search. I say sometimes that I've been writing this book ever since I was a little girl and a teenager and a young woman and a middle-aged woman. And I just didn't know it. My search has been always for what's wrong with me, really.
Yeah.
What is wrong with me? Why are things not connecting, not making sense? Why am I holding back when I want to be speaking up? Why do I have anxiety? Why do I have depression? As a teenager in my late teens and in my early 20s, I suffered from 2 episodes of major depression, and that was scary, and I was suicidal, and that search led me to studying psychology. And now I have 2 graduate degrees in psychology, which lets you know how messed up I was.
Do you feel like, I'm going to stop you already for a second. Do you feel like you were trying to kind of find your way and kind of find out, like, what is it actually that's wrong with me by going the path of psychology?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't know anybody who goes into psychology for a different reason.
It's very noble to say, I want to help the world, but like also
I want to figure out why am I so messed up, really.
Yeah.
And of course I was in therapy for years, and it was helpful in that it gave me insight into myself and taught me to ask deeper questions, but it didn't make any difference in how I felt in terms of anxiety and depression.
Uh-huh.
So, and my search led me to, thankfully, to stumble upon yoga. That was my first introduction to the whole mind body thing,
Hmm.
that the mind and the body work together and we can shift the way we feel through engaging mind, body, and breath. That was a revelation because that's not taught in psych schools. And from there, my search, or serendipity, or both together, intention plus opportunity, took me to follow the trail of breadcrumbs into mind body trauma healing work. And
Hmm.
I didn't think that I had any trauma. Because trauma is defined as a life-threatening experience traditionally.
Hmm.
Now they have expanded the definition to include a wide range of things like childhood experiences that were painful.
Yeah.
And in my book, I further broadened the definition, which I'll touch upon later if you're curious, which was a big part of my healing. At the time, I was really confused as to why I was having all these symptoms, such as anxiety, depression. And I didn't understand back then that there is a trauma connection. And I didn't think I had trauma. But what I experienced in those trainings, retreats, where I experienced deep embodied trauma release, I was like, oh my God, my life changed. That trauma was releasing from my body. And I was making totally different decisions. I started making decisions that were a lot more aligned with my life. I quit a toxic job. I started my business and I started living in alignment. And it was all through trauma release work. And
Hmm.
and my clients were experiencing the same results. I was working as a therapist in New York at the time. And at some point, I began to get really curious about, well, these clients and myself, we didn't have any trauma history. Like we
Hmm.
were not sexually abused. We were not held at a gunpoint. We're not kidnapped. Nothing like that happened. But trauma release worked for us all. So I started to get really curious about what trauma could we possibly all have,
Yeah, it sounds
all
like there's some
women,
universal thing.
right?
Hmm.
That we didn't even know about. And research was coming out at the time about intergenerational transmission of trauma. That trauma is transmitted, passed along, passed down in our DNA. And the studies were really, really fascinating and really clear that even when they did studies on mice who don't even have storytelling like humans do, several generations deep, they had the same traumatic reaction. The mice were traumatized while being introduced to the smell of cherry blossoms.
Hmm.
And then their children and grandchildren also freaked out when they smelled cherry blossoms. They had a strong fear and
Interesting.
anxiety reaction. And the dots connected for me. Oh, that is what it is. Women have been oppressed for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Oppression is traumatic. And the trauma is deep in our DNA, passed down generation to generation to generation. And I termed it Patriarchy Stress Disorder, or PSD,
Hmm.
which is women having this reaction to the smell of cherry blossoms. What is the smell of cherry blossoms for us? Everything we desire that has historically been surrounded by prohibition and danger, such as being powerful,
Hmm.
making a lot of money, loving who we love, being really deep and intimate, loving ourselves. Shit.
Right.
Like
Hmm. Being
that's
sexually expressive.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Or
And
just being
then
expressive in general, not even
exactly,
sexually.
being exactly. And then we're reading all these self-help books. We're going to seminars. I'm raising my hand. I've been doing it for
Sure,
years.
me too.
And then still something is missing. And of course we think, oh, something's so wrong with me. I'm so messed up that nothing is working. And so when I discovered this piece, when it fell into place, my life changed. And I started talking to women about it. And they're like, yes, yes, that's what I've been feeling all my life.
Yeah.
But not having words for it disempowers us. And so my big gratitude for this message, for coming through me and writing this book, has been hearing women say, oh My goodness, thank you for giving language.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for giving words to this, making the invisible visible. As I like to say, when we make the invisible visible, then we can do the impossible.
I love that. When we make the invisible visible, that's when we make things possible. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, put that on a t-shirt and sell it. At the very least, put that on a meme for Instagram, please, for us.
It's
I
coming.
love that. Well, I think probably so many people are listening and nodding their heads. I know for me growing up, I didn't really start to feel, well, no, I did question like, what is wrong with me? And trying to control things that I couldn't control and trying to change other people to fit what I wanted them to be like. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, I wanted to know, why am I so angry? I just
Mm.
deemed myself as an angry person and I
Right.
hated that about me. And
Mm.
I finally realized it wasn't until probably about 2009. I used to have very different beliefs that I do now. And I realized I took a women's studies class in like one
Mm.
of my last semesters in college. I had gone back to school after a very long break. I was pregnant with my second child at the time. And I had to take an elective. I took a women's studies class and it was called Men and Masculinity. And they taught us, it was for the first time I was learning what really feminism was. I had a very
Mm.
different view of what it was
Right.
before. It was
Mm-hmm.
incorrect. We learned about misogyny and patriarchy and all of these things that I had no idea about. And I remember sitting in that class thinking, oh, this is the thing I've been angry about my entire life. It was a spiritual experience because
Oh, yeah.
also I had to unravel my identity and all of these things,
Mm-hmm.
but it finally made so much sense. And being able to put a name on it so that I could learn more about it and unlearn all of my
Yeah.
own internal misogyny and all of these things that I had just been conditioned to do. So I say all that because I do think that there's a lot of women out there who have a similar path
Mm-hmm.
that I did. And it sounds like this was sort of what your discovery was.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Andrea. And me too. I didn't identify as a feminist for like when I was in my 20s or even my 30s. I was like, like this is like, for, whatever. This is bra burning. I love men. And I love
Don't make
men.
me, not shake my legs, like
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Yeah. 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 And I do love men. And what I want to clarify is that patriarchy doesn't equal men and men doesn't equal patriarchy.
Close your eyes. Focus. Listen to work getting done with Monday.com. Relax as AI does the manual work, while your teams are aligned on a single source of truth. Feel the sensation of an AI work platform, so flexible and intuitive, it feels like it was built just for you. Notice you're limitless. Now open your eyes, go to Monday.com, start for free, and finally, breathe.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Patriarchy is a system, the power distribution in society that has been oppressive and disempowering to women for 10 to 12 thousands of years. Quite a long time.
Yeah.
And it's not about blaming men. If anything, sadly, women uphold patriarchy more so than men in this day and age. And again, this is not to blame women. This is not to blame men. This is to make visible the water that we're swimming in, that we've inherited, that is obsolete. This is not our preferred environment. Men don't benefit. Women don't benefit.
Right.
Nobody benefits from not living a fully expressed, authentic life. So that's why this conversation, let's actually see clearly, okay, this has been holding us back from embracing all of who we are
Yeah.
and being in deeper, more fulfilling relationships with each other.
Yes. And that actually brings me to my next question. And I think that you started to answer it. And that is because you say in the book that PSD is the invisible inner barrier to women's happiness and fulfillment. That's the subtitle of the book. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Mm. Everything that has been standing between you and your desire can be traced to this trauma of oppression and other areas of trauma as well. Which brings me to how I define trauma: any experience that made you feel unsafe, physically or emotionally, and created trauma adaptations to keep you safe.
Say more
So,
about that. What does that mean? Is that coping
yeah,
mechanisms?
exactly.
Okay.
So, trauma adaptations, and I break them down into three major areas: mind, body, and actions, MBA for short. In the mind, these are all the stories about, oh, poor little me. These are victim stories, or these are stories about, oh, no one would want to listen to me, or this is not going to work anyway. Why am I trying? Oh, I'm such a failure. Stories of
Oh, so it's the inner critic.
It's the inner critic.
Okay.
Exactly. It's the imposter syndrome. It's the so-called upper limit problem. That's what it's all about. What these trauma defenses do is they try to keep us safe. In my book, I use the metaphor of the invisible in the prison for PSD, and these trauma defenses or trauma adaptations, I call them prison guards because that's what they are. They keep us in this invisible in the prison to keep us safe. In the body, it may be anxiety, depression, it may be trouble sleeping, it may be fatigue. There are so many women with adrenal fatigue these days, migraines, other chronic stress related conditions, and even
Insomnia on that list too?
insomnia, big time, and just not being able to relax without a glass of wine or a pill. Again, that's not our shortcoming. That's not our failure. This is this trauma that creates constant stress, constant activation of the nervous system that's running hot. And then actions that manifest as, let's say, well, short fuse, having arguments, or inaction, being frozen in inaction. Is our nervous system keeps us safe through three major reactions: fight, flight, freeze. So each one of them is traced down to trauma. What is trying to keep us safe? And basically, whenever we desire something that's outside of what patriarchy allows us to have, and patriarchy allows us to have very little traditionally, it's like be a good girl, be a good wife, be a good mother,
Stay in line.
stay in line, be seen and not heard. Anything outside of that, like having hot, passionate romance, no, it's a no. Having your own money, big no. Being visible, being a leader. Who do you think you are? So all these defenses activate, all these prison guards go on high alert, and that's what creates these invisible barriers to women's happiness and fulfillment.
I'm feeling very uncomfortable over here because I'm just seeing so much of myself in what you're explaining. I'm like wringing my fingers, and I have a feeling that there's a lot of people listening who are as well. And so I think that you have, you're talking about the symptoms, and I so appreciate that. But it's just kind of a two-part question. How does a woman know that she's experiencing, or maybe you already answered that question. If you have more to say on that, I'm curious about it. And also, are you saying that, are there some women who don't experience this? Is this like a universal thing for all women? What's your take on that?
Great question. Because we all come from this long, long, long lineage of oppression. We've all experienced this trauma in our lineage. No one has escaped it unless you're from Mars. And because of that, we all carry this trauma. However, we all have different circumstances, also different mitigating factors. Maybe your mother was a badass and like ran a business empire, right? Let's say, hypothetically. And that helped you to start unwinding from that trauma. That gave you different role modeling. So different factors, and also we're different human beings. Our setup is different. For some women, it's super easy to be expressed in business, but they can't reach an orgasm at all, right? For others, sexuality is easier and easier reclamation, but they're frozen in terms of aligning with their mission in life and finding that meaningful work. So it expresses differently. Everybody has it. but it expresses differently. And when you look at really famous, accomplished women, they all speak about it. All of them. I quote some of them in my book. Like Meryl Streep talks about her imposter syndrome. Diane von Furstenberg says,
Jennifer Lopez has as well.
everyone, right? And when DVF says, most mornings I wake up and I feel like a loser. Hello.
Yeah.
And Gail King says, most mornings I wake up and I feel fat. That toxic self-judgment, right? It's not us. It's not us. The problem is outside of us. Well, it is inside of us, but we cannot solve it as if it was our individual problem. It is collective. And in terms of healing, it is an absolute not only possibility, but that's what I'm doing in my life every day. My clients and students, women who as much as have read the book, have shared. I had a book launch party, and the recording is still on my Facebook page. Dr. Valerie Rein, you can find me on all social there, Instagram, Facebook. But this one, the woman who just read the book, she didn't actually work with me. She was doing other inner work in the process to help her resolve the trauma. But she's describing how her entire life changed. She was actually a very successful business owner already. She had a 7-figure business, and she was a mom. She was feeling really, good, right? And she thought she was doing well. She thought she was successful. And reading the book, she realized that she was living in survival. And that her nervous system was always on, and she didn't have love in her life, and her business was stressful. And she started asking the question that I ask in the book, let's shift from survival to thriving. How do we do that? How do we shift from the game of how much can I bear, the game of survival that we've inherited, to the game of thriving, of how good can it get? And she started asking that question every day. It became her North Star. How good can it get? She started bringing it into her team meetings. And what she described in that book birthday party, that her business began flourishing, her stress level began going down, more joy, more fulfillment in her life. And she opened up to love and attracted an amazing relationship into her life that she didn't think was possible. She was a single mom for a long time. And that's from reading the book, from creating that awareness, and I outline a system, a 5-step system for healing, which you can do following the system. And I also provide some recommendations for finding a practitioner. Of course, you can inquire how to work with us as well. There is more than one path.
I love that. I wanted to circle because you talk about this in your bio, where you say you help women ditch the game of survival of how much can I bear and master the game of thriving, of how good can it get. And I'm going to assume that it's not just like, let's cover this in a week and and you're going to be so much better. But before I want to talk about healing in just a minute, but I want to circle back to, I have a couple of questions, and I'm assuming just to acknowledge it, because I know that you do talk about this, is the symptoms of PSD. And, we were talking about how women experience them. I'm assuming that there are also ranges based on, what class, economic class that you're in, or what race and all of that. And then probably even age comes into play too, as I'm
100%.
now, looking at my 45th birthday, and things are definitely changing. So do you have any words about that?
That is a great question and a continuous exploration. And I'm learning a lot from my clients as I'm sinking deeper into intersectionality of this discovery. Obviously, every woman has been subject to patriarchy, but also many women have been experiencing oppression based on race, based on sexual orientation, ability, age,
weight,
oppression and or prejudice and or societal judgment and dismissal of us. And I feel that there is this common root of PSD and it expresses differently. And you were asking me about symptoms. The two major branches of symptoms, and most women I know experience both, but you may relate to one or the other, are based on how our nervous system protects us. So it's either freeze or fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
In fight or flight, a woman is likely to be a type A achiever, and she is already playing big. She is already doing the things that she wants to do, but it is a struggle. Right? She needs to, be doing her inner work, but she's experiencing something not coming together, falling apart in her personal life, um, loneliness in her marriage, or feeling not quite connected to herself, to her kids if she has kids, and constant high stress levels, which she may not even feel stressed,
Mm-hmm.
but her health shows it. It may be unwanted weight gain or loss. It may be that anxiety. It may be that insomnia. It may be that adrenal fatigue that has become pandemic among high achieving women. And that's because our nervous systems are constantly on high alert when we're playing big in the world where it's never been safe for us. And the other branch is freeze. So a woman may have dreams, or she may not even be in touch with her desires, because even getting in touch with our desires has been historically forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel safe to our subconscious to go there. And then procrastination, distractions, all sorts of what we call excuses come up when she reaches for those desires, and she blames herself, and she feels like shit about it, and she feels incongruent. And to both of these types of women, I just want to say again, it's not your fault. Nothing's wrong with you. It's the same beast we're looking at. And whatever complications or complexities or texture your experiences across other dimensions of your life bring in, your age, your race, your where you come from, your personal history plays a huge part. And so in my system, I take women through, and this is the first step in this system. I call it waking up in prison. I take women through identifying everything that they thought was wrong with them as generating from some area of trauma, personal, collective, inherited, experienced, and really not leaving any stones unturned. Because then we create a full picture of, oh my gosh, I'm a powerful, amazing being. And through this set of circumstances, I received all these lies about who I'm not. And I'm here to liberate myself from those, so I can embody that power and send ripple effects into my relationships, my family, my community, my work in the world.
I am now obsessed with you, Dr. Valerie. Like, I say that because I'm having a moment over here, and I had a feeling that this might happen because I didn't get to talk to you a whole lot when we met late last year. But I don't think that I had time to mention this to you, but I am writing I just accepted an offer as we're recording this to write my third book. And this one, I know it's exciting. It's also terrifying for me, Patriarchy Stress Disorder, because I am taking a little bit of a new angle on self-help. My last two books have been more or less just general. My second book had a little bit of a deeper dive into shame and why we do these behaviors, et cetera, and lots of advice on how to help it. And then I started to then 2017 happened with the Me Too movement. I started to do my own work and unraveling a lot of things, a lot of healing. And the conclusion I came to is that, I wanted to write another self-help book, and I could not shake the intuitional message I was getting that I can no longer write about self-help and just talk about it on a more or less surface level of saying, here's how we work on feeling good enough, without addressing what you're talking about. Because to me, I felt like a hypocrite saying, you go girl, and, and shaking my fist in the air and saying, you can do anything, you can do it and it's not to blame and shame men or the patriarchy. It's just saying there's nothing wrong with you. This isn't your fault. Like, there is a system that's been created that has made you feel not good enough, that has made you keep quiet when you want to speak up in meetings, that has made you feel like you don't compare well enough to all of the other women in your life, all of those things that women come to me for help with, because I have a deep desire to get to the root of the problem. Like, let's quit put fucking Band-Aids on shit that is gushing blood and figure out what the real problem is. So the last 10 years I've been doing this work. It's been my quest to find out, like, where is the root of the problem? Let's stop the bleeding there. Let's heal it there. And I kind of have come full circle in 10 years to come back to this. And I haven't totally started diving into writing this book. We're recording this the very first week of January. I'm nodding my head over here, and all of that to say, thank you for writing this book. Thank you for saying all of this, because it is validating and I love it when people come on who have letters after their name that have gone to all the school and everything, that just validate this, and that as women, it is not your fault. And there is a deeper issue going on that we aren't really going to get a lot of healing and solution by pointing the finger. Of course, like, we have to grieve and process and all of that, but like, let's collectively have conversations about it.
Yeah.
Rip the covers off of it and then heal from there. So thank you for letting me jump up on my soapbox for a few minutes.
I appreciate that, Andrea.
Thank you. Which leads me to something that I am curious about, because you did mention men, and that it's not about, I'm raising a daughter and a son, and I know he's a sixth grader, he's 12 years old, and I'm seeing very much, how the patriarchy is affecting him as well. And, my husband and I are having conversations about it. So what about men? In light of your discovery of patriarchy stress disorder, what is your message to men in general, or just talk to us about that?
1 second, you're finally cleaning out the gutters. The next, the fire alarm blares from inside. Smoke billows out the kitchen window. These are the wake-up calls that happen daily. In 1 second, everything can change. ADT knows that nobody wants to feel unsafe or unprepared for an emergency, especially in their own home. That's why they offer affordable DIY security systems you can set up yourself and monitor from virtually anywhere with the ADT Plus app. They're customizable, so you can set up the system that works best for you and keep an eye on it in real time. And ADT security technology is designed for peace of mind by making it easier for first responders to identify your house. They have the most company-operated monitoring centers in the industry, which means you'll get the alerts that matter for you and your home. You tackle that to-do list, ADT will help make sure your home's protected. When every second counts, count on ADT. Visit ADT.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
I love bringing men into this work. Usually what happens is we start working with a woman, and the veils start falling away that have been distorting her view of herself and what's possible in her life and her relationship. And she goes, oh, I want my relationship to go to the next level. I see where my husband has this trauma, my partner, and I want them in this work. And so that's how men end up coming into this work too. Because if you're human, you have trauma, period.
Nobody gets out scot-free, unfortunately.
Who here can say, well, I've never had an experience where I felt unsafe physically or emotionally, and then developed certain strategies to protect myself in my mind, in my body, or through my actions. And of course, those strategies are subconscious. That's a whole other conversation. But back to men. Love men. And actually 2020, this is a big question for me, how to bring in more and more men allies into this work, into this conversation. Because men crave it too. I talk about the primary wound of PSD is the wound of worthlessness for women. Women have been made to experience themselves as worth less than men.
Yep.
Recently, one of the readers of my book pointed out, as she was giving the book to her husband, pointed out to me that she explained it to her husband as in men are experiencing the wound of being worth less than the patriarchal idea of what a man should be.
Yeah.
And that is across the board. Show me a man who is 100% patriarchal. Ideal. There are a lot of men who are delusional and just bought into that, and but we're not talking to this category. We're talking about men who are also feeling the impact of Me Too, who are questioning, oh my gosh, how have I been showing up in my life? Have I been
in that.
Have I been congruent with myself, with my authentic self? And there's a lot of trauma that's coming to the surface for men also.
Yes, I believe that.
Oh, and these men need support. They need also the environment where they can be validated, not blamed, but feel safe. Safety is the crucial precondition to healing. We all need to feel safe to heal. And that's why it's so hard to make changes within your relationship, for example, when you're just shaking self-help books at your partner, you gotta read this.
Whoever wants to hear that? You know what you need? You need a life coach and a therapist. Nobody wants to hear that.
And the truth is that we're shaking these self-help books or clubbering our partners over the head with them.
And I have done that to my husband. I've been like, you need to read this book.
So have I. But then I realized, and actually my husband in one of those episodes said to me, oh, look at all these books that you have on mindfulness and yoga and enlightened relationships, and you just can't help yourself. And he was 100% true. I couldn't help myself because what I didn't know then, what I know now, it's all about trauma getting triggered.
Yeah.
All about trauma getting triggered. And then we're hijacked. We can't help ourselves. So our trauma is getting triggered. We are angry and we just can't stop the train. And then our partner feels unsafe and they're doing their shitty things back to us. And it's just a self-perpetuating cycle. So to me, this is a great contribution to not only to peace on earth, but to just greater, happier, more fulfilled lives for everyone, men and women. Learn about your own trauma. Learn about it. Nothing's wrong with you. It didn't break you. You survived.
Yeah.
And it's not the trauma. It's the adaptations that are hurting you now. Yeah, we can meet them. We can get to know them. And we can transform them from prison guards to bodyguards.
Prison guards to bodyguards. You're talking about the men in our lives?
I'm talking about trauma adaptations.
You're talking about trauma adaptation. Okay.
That men and women both have.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. I just want to make sure I was clear on that. Because my train of thought immediately raced over to the women listening who want, I have a feeling what's going to happen is they're going to listen to this podcast episode and they're like, I need to let my husband listen to this. And it might not be and I'm talking about heteronormative relationships here for a second, but there might be the woman who's like, I need my dad to listen to this or my brother. And I think the thing that then my next thought is, well, sometimes we can get excited about things that these revelations that we're having, and then we're not met with the same sort of understanding that we were looking for. And you were speaking to that, and then they, react weird. And I think what's happened is a lot of men think that we're mad at them personally.
Yeah.
Especially when you say the words toxic masculinity, a lot of men are like, what did I do? And we think we're talking just about them. And it's becomes this argument. And I think that what can also happen, and maybe you can say yes or no, is that sometimes we feel re-traumatized when we're trying to talk to a man in our life about this, and then they react defensively, and then we
Oh,
feel like we need to take care of their feelings. And we're like, motherfucker, I've been doing this my entire life, and I have to
yeah,
take care of your feelings and be compassionate towards you when I'm dealing with my own trauma. So my
yeah.
question for you is, do you have a tip or some advice on how women can, because I think, a lot of us are sort of baby stepping or just giant stepping into our conversations with the women in our life about this.
Mhm.
But how do we have these conversations with the men in our life without, while at the same time taking care of ourselves, I guess is the
Mhm.
question.
Yeah. That's a big question, and the answer is going to be different for everyone.
Sure.
And it all starts with awareness.
Mhm.
And um, I recommend checking out my book, really. And the
Yeah.
reason I do that is because I've been hearing from men, and there are some reviews on Amazon also from men that you can check out. That really surprised me. And I know some men personally who are in my circle who, like, we didn't even have these conversations about trauma before, like, ever, right? But they are rereading the book now, and they're saying that
Mhm.
it's so accessible. It made them, for the first time, understand things. There are case studies there are stories. There is one case study of a man specifically. I included it to show, hey, we're all human.
Yeah.
We're all dealing with pain, and we all have these prison guards that express sometimes as health conditions. This man in the book had a heart condition, which the doctor said there's nothing wrong with you. You're making
Mhm.
this up, but he was having severe symptoms, right? And you'll, if you check out the book, you'll find out what happened.
So you mean he heard from the doctor what women have been hearing for so
Yeah,
long?
right.
It's all in your head.
It's all in your head, but
Mhm.
it's real, right? Mind body connection is real. We're not making this up. So I don't want you exposing yourself to being re-traumatized, because
Mhm.
you asked a very insightful question. There's even re-traumatization that happens in therapy. Like, I
Oh,
had
yeah.
plenty of re-traumatizing experience in therapy because of the lack of attunement and understanding from a therapist, both male and female. So
Mhm.
I feel what we need is conversations like we're having. And if you, our listener, if you are resonating with this conversation, find others who are resonating with this conversation so you can have a support group, right?
Mhm.
And you can always get in touch with us, I imagine, right? You have a community, I have a community where we're cultivating the conversations where people can feel safe and validated and seen and heard. And together we're figuring out how to create this tipping point where it's
Mhm.
not only okay to have these conversations, it's necessary.
Yeah.
And everybody sees it as a win-win, as a great service, because it is.
I 100% agree with you. And sort of circling back to the healing aspect of it, I know personally that having the conversation and, reading books like yours and just understanding what's going on is the first step in healing. Because you can't, I
Yeah.
always say, like, you can't clean up your dirty kitchen if it's totally pitch black dark in there. It's going
Yeah.
to be extremely difficult. So turn the lights on, figure out what's going on and what needs to happen. And then I know, and please, this is my experience, but as I started to really dive into this around 2017 and heal, I've spent the last few years really kind of going through, I don't want to say going through the ringer, but at times it has felt like that.
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed that I really need to take care of myself during this time
Yes,
because
100%.
I recently did a little deep dive into the Enneagram, and I'm an 8, and we tend to be very quick to anger. That's our that's how we process things. And that's how I've been my entire life. And I and according to the Enneagram, I mean, I don't know how much you buy into that. I know it's a little bit of pseudo psychology, but it's either anger, I think it's either shame, fear, or anger. So all that to
Mm-hmm.
say, you can react any way that might happen. And I think what I'm trying to say is, please, I'm begging people out there to take care of yourself,
Yeah.
because I've done a lot of work on myself, and this thing has been, which led me to my work in really diving into my own sexuality and working with a practitioner there, which I had her on, Jessica Graham, a few weeks ago. I'm telling everyone, like, this has been some of the most challenging work I have ever done, but so incredibly worth it.
Yeah.
This, I think, is taking me to new levels in my career, in my personal relationships, in my relationship with myself, in my own self-trust. I feel at 44 years old like I have truly been cracked open. And I hate to sound super cliche, but almost a rebirth. And it is equal parts terrifying and exhilarating.
Yeah.
Is that, like, please tell me I'm normal. Because as I say all this, my own inner critic is like, shut up, don't reveal yourself too much. But I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's at least fairly normal, right?
Yeah, why would you want to be normal?
That's true.
What is normal anyway, right? Is that the status quo of being a zombie and being out of touch with everything? Is that normal?
Well, I think it's more of like an unlearning everything I've always been taught that is true.
Yeah. And of course, it's upsetting. It's deeply troubling. And all these structures that you thought were true are disintegrating.
Yeah.
So, yes, self-care is paramount. Remember what you're doing. You are undoing thousands of years of trauma. And you're not only doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the previous generations, for the future generations, for those around you. It's a very noble task. Is it a choppy ride? It is a choppy ride. I'm on this ride also. And thankfully, I have a partner, my life partner, who's also my partner in this work. And it facilitates these processes for me. Like, we're at it every day. And we're working with our clients, supporting them, continuing to build the critical mass of this community of practice. I feel that community of practice is so super important because we all have these questions when we're in our own silos. What's wrong with me? Am I normal? Is this supposed to be happening? So guidance is important. It's important to have a qualified guide, and it's important to have, in my view, it's important to have a community, especially in this work that deals with healing collective trauma. I mean, come on. We got traumatized in a community, in a very, very big community. So our healing also needs to happen in a community.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else, any last words that you want to make sure that you say before we say goodbye today?
Thank you, Andrea. It's been a joy and a pleasure. Thank you, all listeners, for sharing your time with us. And I want to leave you with a very practical next step. On my website, drvalerie.com, you can check out the first chapter of my book. And see if you want to go further, then it's available on Amazon. And there is also one of the first tools that I teach all my clients and students. It's right there on the website. It's an audio that you can download. I call it the Repower tool. It will help you whenever you're triggered, whenever you're not feeling fully in your body, in your power, to regain that presence. A woman's power is in her presence, and get centered. It's at drvalerie.com/repower. And last but not least, I have a podcast that you can check out with these conversations happening in depth about how women leaders are experiencing PSD, what strategies we're using. And there is even a whole series on PSD, how it manifests in different areas of our lives and what you can do about that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. And the book is Patriarchy Stress Disorder, The Invisible Inner Barrier to Women's Happiness and Fulfillment. Dr. Valerie Rein, you're over at drvalerie.com, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All the links are in the show notes, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. As I always tell you, I know how valuable your time is, and I am honored that you choose to spend it with me and my guests. And until next time, I will see you all out in cyberspace. Bye-bye. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I would be so incredibly grateful if you haven't done so already, if you could leave a review of this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Super easy if you already listen to your shows over there. But if you don't, or maybe you have the app on your phone, but you listen to the show on a different app, if you could leave a review for this show, it matters so much. I wish I could express how much it matters. I also wish that it didn't matter so much, but alas, it does. So if you haven't already, please go review and rate the show. It would mean so much to me. And thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing day.